Welcome to our presentation on wellness tweets during a pandemic, based on our Info 287 final project, written by myself, Kejo Buchanan, along with my fellow hosts and classmates, Jack Clark and Justin Rogowski. We are doing this recording on behalf of San Jose State University on November 3rd, 2020. We chose to look at mental health based on research that we gathered from the National Institute of Mental Health. As you can see in this image, it shows some demographics that are most affected by mental health. We found that in 2017, approximately 20% of the US adult population suffered from at least one mental health issue. In addition, we also found on a global scale, the WHO reported the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted or halted critical mental health services in 93% of countries worldwide, while the demand for mental health is increasing. Therefore, we decided to focus our analysis on people and how people communicate on mental health issues through Twitter. Based on the metrics, we were expecting to find a correlation between retweets and followers, or some other correlation that would indicate a strong predictor for our outcome of tweet popularity. In addition, we were hoping to collect number of likes as one of the potential metrics from the Twitter data scraping as a way to measure that popularity. Instead, we have decided to alter our research question based on our findings, which did not include likes or retweets with comments or historical data. However, let's go further into what we were hoping to solve with Jack.
Hi, Kejo. Thank you. What we were hoping to look at, what we were hoping to solve by looking at mental health states during a pandemic was to investigate how people were sharing information about mental health, how they were kind of forming a community, and how they were interacting based on mental health. We used 3 keywords: anxiety, mental health, and self-care. So our first research question, we started with 2 of them. The first was to identify key influencers of tweet popularity as measured by the number of retweets. Our initial hypotheses, as Kejo mentioned, were number of followers of the user that posted the tweet and whether or not the captured tweet was an original or a retweet. Our other research question was, where is the strongest correlation within the series of numeric data? One of the things we wanted to look at was how each factor interrelated to see if there were relationships we might not have been expecting. Our final results did come from factors we were not expecting to have a relationship. In order to answer these research questions, we looked at 2 sets of data pulled from Twitter in the month of October 2020. Our 3 keywords that I mentioned were chosen to cover mental health discussions that might be occurring during the COVID-19 pandemic. The fields we looked at started with the 6 fields that the Twitter data scraper gave us, which was a date timestamp of the tweet, the full text of the tweet, the number of retweets it got, any hashtags in the tweet, the number of followers the user had, and friends, which is the number of people the user was following. Using these fields, we used Python to add several additional columns. Source was which data set the tweet came from, which is a combination of the date the scraper was run and which keyword was used. Is retweet is simply whether or not the tweet was an original or a retweet. The total character count of the tweet, which keyword was used, which is which keyword was used regardless of date the scraper was run. The existing data provided a combined date timestamp, which we then split into a column for each of them. And then we also ran a sentiment analysis on the complete data frame to determine the subjectivity and polarity of the tweets. For details of the analysis and the code we ran, here's Justin.
Alrighty, thank you, Jack. I'm just going to switch gears and hopefully my screen stays. Oops, okay. Switch over to our actual code. So this is where we generated our additional columns in our part 1 data cleaning and formatting section. As Jack previously mentioned, we also combined our data sets into one large data set, which we called combined DF. So after looking at our initial data, we did not find any strong correlations. So we chose to perform a sentiment analysis on our data. Doing so added 2 new variables, polarity and subjectivity, and that was achieved through the text blob module, which we imported with Python. And that module reads the text row of our data frame and assigns a subjectivity and polarity number. The subjectivity variable is a measure of the subjectivity or objectivity of the text. A value of 0.5 or lower indicates a more objective sentiment, while a value of 0.5 or higher indicates a more subjective sentiment. Along the same lines, the polarity variable ranges from -1 to 1, where a positive value indicates a positive sentiment and a negative value indicates a negative sentiment. After generating and formatting our additional columns and variables, we created a heat map which displays the correlation matrix of every variable. What we found surprising was the high correlation between subjectivity and polarity, which outweighed our original high correlation of followers and friends. We interpret this data to mean that those who discuss mental health issues on Twitter tend to communicate in an objective manner, and they also remain generally positive. We delved deeper into those 2 variables specifically and performed a regression analysis using polarity as our predictor and subjectivity as our outcome variable. Now back at the presentation, again, we have our 2 of our correlation heat maps, and these ones are particular looking at the data frame that is a collection of positive sentiment and objective. And again, the correlation values for subjectivity and polarity are both strong for both of these data sets. And the other strong values of followers and friends trends with every other data set, and it's really not, there's nothing surprising there. So we chose to focus on the surprising values of subjectivity and polarity. In conclusion, we are hoping that this project will serve as a preliminary framework for further investigation into tracking wellness discussion on Twitter using the advantages of the polarity and subjectivity variables identified through this research. Thank you.